Okay, can you guys hear me? Kaz, I'm unmuting
Yeah.
you straight away because you are
Yeah, well, that
debating.
would help.
I can hear
Yeah,
you.
I know. Okay, so just a quick intro then. Kaz and Eden will be having a debate on the topic of abortion. Kaz is taking the stance that it is permissible, at least under certain circumstances. Eden is obviously opposing that idea. There is no time limit or strict format. It's going to be free flowing. There is a VC text for follow along or questions. After they finish discussing, then anybody can ask either questions. Just ask to be unmuted or anything along those lines. If you need moderation, Zoom is your guy for this evening. So without further ado, which one of you wants to kick it off?
Eden can go first. It's all right.
Yeah,
If he has
sure.
a statement.
Sure, I take the affirmative here, and I'd say that unborns deserve the moral equivalent as born humans, and Kaz is here to refute that.
Yep. I'm just wrestling with the idea of whether or not infants or babies really should be given protection under the law and be seen as persons in their own right.
Just real quick, did you mean to say infant?
Slip of the tongue.
Okay, I just want to say, it's a whole different argument
Yeah.
if you want to start killing toddlers.
Yeah, no, slip of the tongue. Yeah, no. I mean, I was basically just wanting. Just first thing I've been is I remember that was it with you or with somebody else? I was talking about potential human and actual human, but the more I kind of looked into this issue, the more I kind of realized there's a clear distinction between a human and a human that deserves personhood. So that's why I clarified it: that protection under the law and to be seen as as a person, not just a human.
Sure. So, what do you identify personhood to be?
What do I identify a person to be?
Not person, personhood. The Bible.
Personhood. Yeah, no, that's good. Actually, it's good to say personhood. I would first of all, I believe that to be a person is to be protected under the law for legal reasons. I believe is the most fundamental thing about personhood is the protection it gives you from the law, regardless of whether you're human or not.
So when I kill a pregnant woman, I'm also charged with the murder of the child as well. So the unborn is therefore given legal protection. The same as if a doctor gives an abortion unbeknownst to the female, that doctor would be arrested for murder because he had killed the baby. So that the unborns are persons by that logic. If the only goalpost is to be protected under the law, then they are protected under the law. So do you agree that unborns do deserve or do meet your requirements to become persons?
No, they don't. Not as yet. They may in the future. But I would then, I mean, do you believe embryos themselves are persons?
But you got to get you to answer to carry on.
Yeah.
You say that to be a person and to get awarded personhood, they must be protected under the law. And I gave you the circumstances where they are protected under the law. So either you're denying that they are protected under the law, or you're denying that they are persons, or are you moving the goalpost on what you'd consider to be personhood?
No, okay. I haven't looked into the law side of things in the sense that the differences between the laws in Australia and the laws in the UK. I haven't looked into that as such, but from what I know is they don't have any strict legal protection because they're not seen as a person in their own right. Sounds like what you're talking about is not the protection of the fetus itself. I don't know if you want to maybe explain it a bit more clearer for me.
It's pretty universal, actually, except pretty much all of the Western civilizations, including Australia, you're arrested for at least manslaughter. If you say you're in a robbery situation with a pregnant woman and she accidentally has a miscarriage due to something that you've caused, you're arrested for manslaughter and you're charged with manslaughter, because it's that person, that embryo, that life has been given a right to life, but it's only protected up until the mother. So it comes into bodily autonomy. So the woman can say whether to kill or let live, but anyone else is protected against. So if you want to go, I'm helping you out saying that the law protects them, but only against everything else. Everything that's essential doesn't protect them against their own mother.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, you can say in countries like the Middle East and Africa's, then obviously those fundamental laws aren't really established as such yet. But in the Western civilizations, it's manslaughter to kill an unborn in a woman's belly, and you will be charged for it. It's not like I can't just kill people's babies and get away with it, and I won't just be arrested for assault on a woman. I'll be arrested for manslaughter on an unborn.
Okay. Well, you've made me think about looking into that a bit more, because I was not aware of that at all. But I mean, the main reason why this debate started is because I had an interesting question that I was wrestling with. Now, I'm not, trying to dodge your question or anything like that. I acknowledge that I really don't have an answer to your question, because, I mean, I'm not well acquainted with the law in general, in the sense of kind of like knowledgeable. I'm not knowledgeable on matters that involve the law. So I've never really put a lot of thought into it. But I had what I was wrestling with is, I kind of figured to myself anyways, that if you're going to give an embryo personhood, that there would be certain circumstances where it would lead to some pretty crazy consequences. Okay. So I mean, if you want me to give you a good example of exactly what I'm talking about, it would be 2 seconds. Okay, here we go. Sorry, mate. How would you define manslaughter?
Manslaughter broadly would just be accidental murder.
So it does not have intent, correct? Yeah. So manslaughter. Okay, so murder would be an abortion, because you intend to get an abortion. You intend to commit murder, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now I was thinking about the whole unintentional aspect of it. Now, it makes complete sense that manslaughter would be causing the unintentional death of another person. But if you're going to give personhood to an embryo, it would be logical to think that a miscarriage would be manslaughter, because it's unintentional, just like causing the death of another person is unintentional.
Sure, unless and I'm consistent on
that person. What's that?
Sure, I'm consistent on that. If I was to make the laws, I'd say that a woman that has a miscarriage, but it is her fault, say, e.g., she did drugs, or she was an alcoholic, or she drove while under the influence and she had a miscarriage, that would still be her fault, and she'd still be done for manslaughter.
Well, at least you're consistent on that front. So that would be like voluntary manslaughter.
That would be, yeah, it would be voluntary.
So it'll be
So
voluntary.
yeah, there is a big difference between involuntary and voluntary, right? And it would be.
Yeah, no, I recognize that. So you would deem that a woman who has a miscarriage for no reason, no fault of her own, that would be involuntary. It wouldn't be she wouldn't be volunteering herself to have a miscarriage. It would be against her. Well, I suppose, sorry if I'm chopping and changing. She wouldn't intend to have a miscarriage. So it would be completely unintentional. So it would be the exact opposite of what you were talking about earlier. It will be unintentional.
Yeah, it would be an unintentional death. The same as like if a woman, say, take the embryo and fast forward until the child's 5 years old, and the mother is driving down a motorway and is intoxicated, has an accident, the baby dies and she doesn't. I think the embryo and the 4-year-old have the moral equivalence to each other.
Okay, so you believe an embryo has the moral equivalency of a baby?
Yeah.
Oh, yep, you do. How do you feel about IVF clinics?
I don't really think anything of it.
Well,
just just making women pregnant is that it? I don't see what specifically do you mean about
what
IVF
specifically
clinics?
I mean, because an IVF clinic, I think they take 20, roughly for every child, they have to create 20 embryos. So they create, by your definition, 20 persons, and they kill on average about 19 of those persons for every person that ends up being born. So under your logic, it would almost seem as though if say Bob and Jen decide to go to an IVF clinic and have a child, that they would or should be done for murder, because I mean they intentionally went to an IVF clinic.
Sure, but that is again moving the goalpost a little bit too far when we give them that responsibility. But also, when do you stop it? Saying me having a wank would be manslaughter.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. You didn't say you having a wank, and I asked you about embryos, and you said yes, they are persons. You clearly said that. So I'm clearly giving you an example of how an IVF clinic would create 20 embryos.
Sure.
And 19 of them be thrown in the rubbish bin.
Yeah, I completely grant, to be consistent, that I would get rid of IVF clinics. I don't see the moral need for them anyway.
Well,
I don't think women have the right
it's
to.
one thing. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying actually, but I suppose it's you basically do agree that an IVF clinic kill a lot of kids. As I said, usually it's about 19 embryos to one baby. That's usually the ratio I've come up with from what I've read about it.
Sure.
I'm just asking you to be consistent. What don't you think?
Yeah, I don't think that being able to have the babies like artificially inseminated, or have women artificially inseminated is like a it's like a right to have, you know, and especially when if I grant moral attributes to an embryo, then if they're killing embryos, then of course they're killing lives to me. And
I mean, I get where you're kind of I kind of get where you're going with this, but I mean, it isn't really clear. I mean, it's a clear yes or a no. Either they're persons or they're not.
Yeah, I said they're persons.
So an embryo is a person. So then IVF clinics, well, actually more than that. I was going to say the IVF clinic's at fault, but more than that, it's actually the couple that go in to get a baby. They actually are committing murder on not just one, not just two, but somewhere between 15 and 20 murders. And all they do is get one child out of it. So it's kind of one or the other. It's either a yes or a no.
It's a yes.
I mean, it's a yes.
Yes,
So
they are
it's
completely under that framework. They are committing manslaughter. It's not murder directly because they're probably
well, they
aware.
I wouldn't disagree. If they knowingly went into an IVF clinic knowing this information that's freely available on the internet,
Yeah, then it's murder.
it is murder because they intended to it. And so if you speak to the average person that goes into IVF clinic, even if you told them all this, they still would go into there. I know
But
that
they're selfish.
They're selfish.
They're selfish. They're
So they put in their own
perfectly
self-
willing to kill 20 or 19 embryos just so they can have a child. To fulfill their wants and desires, they will happily murder other potential babies.
And the IVF clinic itself is committing murder.
By doing
Because
it,
I mean,
yes.
well, yeah, okay. That's kind of where I came to. That's what I was thinking leading into this debate. That's where I was hung up because the one person that he's Christian, but he holds some interesting views. Some I agree with, some I don't. Most I don't. But yeah, the IVF discussion with him has been ongoing off and on probably for the last 6 months sort of thing. So that's the one thing I was wrestling with. So, I mean, I can kind of understand to a certain extent why he believes what he believes because it is all based around his religious beliefs. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I suppose as saying that, are you religious yourself?
No, I'm not. I'm not making any appeals to religion at all. Everything that I have right now is scientific.
No. It's just I'm just as an honest answer. Well, I hope it's an honest answer on your part, but it's an honest question as well. Just curious, where do your beliefs stem from? Have you always had these beliefs about anti-abortion?
They first began as like a self appeal to emotion because I saw children and grew up with lots of children around me and everything, and obviously no one wants to see children harm. And then I looked scientifically into it, and I kind of self-played name the trait between a toddler and an unborn.
Yeah, usually it
And
leads up.
and
Yeah,
I looked into the sciences of it, and there is no. What I found was a constant struggle between the two sides of bodily autonomy to the human rights, to granting the unborn the right to life, and how that goes against or in conflict to bodily autonomy. And I've come to the conclusion that not only is bodily autonomy full of shit, we don't even have bodily autonomy. None of us have bodily autonomy at all
yeah.
in the world, but also that we should award human rights to unborn children.
Okay. I mean,
From the
I
point of a
myself,
zygote,
can't
I
draw the
agree that
conclusion.
zygotes can be aborted.
I just can't make that leap of faith, I suppose. I just can't. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying you're completely wrong. Well, I suppose I am, but I just don't share your belief. And I believe mine to be more rational.
What
More
belief?
rational
Sorry.
belief, probably because I just can't hold. I just couldn't. I don't really. I'm not like a big pro-choice person. I don't really like. I'm not big on that, but I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure which side of the fence I've fallen, but I'm somewhere in the middle. But so I suppose I'm very agnostic on the issue in general. I just can't. from my position, I just can't make the leap to actually really understand how an embryo itself could be a human, or it is a human being. That's the thing. See, that's the thing. I used to think about potential human and human, but it really has nothing to do with that. I mean, to be a human is just to have human genetics, really. I mean, it's all about personhood. And I just believe for something to have personhood, it needs to be more than just an embryo.
What does it need then? We're circling back to the start now. When I asked you what would be personhood,
Yeah,
you said about it being protected under the law, and we've established that they are protected under the law. So what else do you need to grant personhood?
Okay, consciousness would be one. Reasoning, self-motivated activity, how by whatever means, and capacity to communicate by whatever means. It does not necessarily need to be linguistically. I mean, that would be what I came at to recently. Just that's where I would hold it. It'd be something along those lines. That's the best
Sure.
I can come up with. But yeah. But
So
see, I mean, you find yours to be a lot more, I suppose, simplistic, correct? For you?
the problem is I find too much wrong with those goalposts that you set, because
Yeah.
in the same way that vegans play name the trait, you've just given me a moral permissibility card to go and kill every single comatose person on the planet without any repercussion or action being taken against me. It wouldn't be murder in your framework to go and kill those people because they're not conscious, they can't communicate, they can't do this, they can't do that.
It's debatable, I suppose. Then it comes down to how you
That's why we're
define
debating it. Let's go.
terms. Yeah, no,
What do you
that's
mean
right.
it's debatable? We're debating it.
Yeah, well, that's what it means. I mean, it would come down to how you define consciousness. And I would define consciousness as, sleep itself has you're conscious during sleep because
What do you
you've got
think
brain.
unborn babies are doing?
What's that?
What do you think
Well, I don't
fetuses are
believe
doing?
it. I don't. Well, I don't. You're kind of really not putting words in my mouth, but I'm looking at from the embryonic stage. There's no brain there, so there's no brain activity. I mean, if somebody's brain dead, for example, I have no problems with that person not having the right to life, not being person. So what you were saying before, I mean, I completely grant that person or that human, that the human that was a person is no longer a person. It no longer has personhood. Because I believe you can be a human, but yet not have personhood. And I also believe non-human animals can have personhood as well, and they're clearly not humans.
Okay,
And it
do you
could
know
be
that
stretched even further.
within that? Do you know that within 4 weeks the rudimentary structure of the neural plate develops? It's the
Say that
precursor to
again.
the nervous system in the body. So within 4 weeks they have that the brain, the neural plate develops.
Well, they don't have that within when they're a embryo. Within the first, it seems to just hold as soon as their egg is fertilized by the sperm. That's when life starts. That's when personhood starts. I'm just talking about specifically from that moment onwards.
Sure, but we're talking about abortion, right? And nobody aborts an embryo. Nobody knows at that point. Right? It's like saying people abort zygotes. That doesn't really happen because no one really knows that they're pregnant at that point. So it's kind of like a non-starter when you say aborting a
well,
what's the point you're talking about?
I get what you're saying, but I'd say that go back to the IVF clinic example of the amount of persons as you'd say, get killed per baby. And that's done intentionally by the IVF clinic.
Sure, and they're wrong and selfish and a bit weird for doing it, to be honest.
So you clearly you believe that's as bad, that is as bad. So killing 10 embryos is as bad as killing 10 grown human beings. If you intended on doing them, if
Yes.
if you went into it with the same sort of premeditated mindset, it's equal.
Yes.
So I just can't make that leap at all because
Okay,
I don't.
okay, we won't ask you to make a leap that far, and I'll
Yeah.
ask you to give me like a not an arbitrary, a designated. When do you think it is okay or not okay to have an abortion? Do you believe that all the way up to birth I can have an abortion? Not me personally, obviously, but women can have an abortion all the way up to birth, or is there a certain cutoff point where you then give that value of a human?
Yeah, well, I mean,
to
this is
the
like
baby?
the sororities paradox. I had a feeling this is what you were going to say because it is the horror moment in everybody who kind of an argument over abortion. And I know that point for me, I mean, would be arbitrary in your books. I mean, yeah, it's arbitrary. I haven't really, there's no answer to it really.
Well,
I
there is an
get
answer
that.
because most
Well,
of
yeah,
the
I know,
Western
I just
civilizations.
know, well, yeah, what you're saying, the answer is that life starts when the sperm meets the egg.
No, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say that
Okay,
most
I
of
thought
the
that's well.
Westerns,
Okay, there you go. Shouldn't assume. So what were you going to say?
most of the Western civilizations, like America, England, Europe, they all have a 20 to 24 week cutoff point. So after 24, which is the most extreme, which is America, obviously, because they're idiots, 24 weeks is the cutoff point. You can't have an abortion after that. Now, why
Okay, so
is
yeah,
24 weeks any different to 20? Or 24
okay,
weeks any
now
different to 23 weeks and 29 days?
see, I would say that if I have to draw a line in the sand, I mean, well, that's what's going to seem like to you.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with it being arbitrary because that's what most of the people say.
The fetus having brain activity would be where the line is drawn. And I know that's fairly early on. That's why I said that I'm definitely not full on in the pro-life. I don't believe in abortions, even midterm, under certain circumstances, yes. But in general, I really think abortion should be done. And I'm not saying they ought to be done before there is brain activity, but that's how I feel when I think about the issue.
So why is brain activity a big deal? Why do you think?
Because
Why is that a goalpost?
I don't believe if there's no brain activity, well, there is no brain, or there's no brain to feel the pain. So I believe it's kind of the sensation of being able to feel pain. And
Okay, so
that's fundamental for us to be called persons, or us to have personhood, is the ability to feel pain.
see, this is a unique opportunity for me to play name and trait on you when I and appeal to your emotion when I say, what about if your mother was brain dead, and would I be morally permiss under you to walk into a house and smother her with a pillow?
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't. I just turned the laptop up. The sounds. Say
If
that again.
if your mother was brain dead, would I
Yep.
be morally permissed to walk into your house and put a pillow over her head and suffocate her to death?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
What's the difference between a brain dead human fully grown and a brain dead embryo?
I would say, top of my head, look, I mean, I'm just thinking what you said. So what's the difference between a brain dead? What did you say?
A
Sorry,
brain dead adult
brain
and
dead adult. Yes,
a brain dead fetus.
brain dead. There is no difference.
So why am I not morally permitted to kill your mother? Why is she protected and the fetus isn't?
I'm not sure. Explain to me why. I really am not.
You're saying that they are. You're saying they're different. I'm saying they're exactly the same. I'm saying that I would never go into your house and kill your mother if she was
Well, there
brain
you go.
dead,
I
just
mean,
because she was brain dead.
yeah, okay. Well, just tell me, why do you think they're exactly the same?
Because I grant them both the right to life.
Both have the right to life, regardless.
I mean, we can go at it from a
I don't
vegan
know.
standpoint as well if you want and say, why
Yeah,
don't you eat
that's
chicken eggs?
probably easy for me to grasp. Yeah, go.
Why don't you eat chicken eggs?
Why don't I eat chicken eggs? Probably. Well, if we're talking, it just depends upon the chicken egg itself. I do believe if you want do you want my explanation, my full explanation? Because I would say generally, in 99% of the cases, I don't believe any eggs to be something that should be seen as permissible, but there are certain circumstances where you can.
So you agree that a vegan can permissibly, under the vegan framework, eat eggs?
I believe they can if they want to. I
How
mean,
so?
how so? Under my framework, I would
Mhm.
say if they own the chicken, if they own the chicken, it's chickens in the backyard, you know, they let it lay eggs and they take their eggs. I mean, and let's even say they don't take all their eggs, they only take half their eggs and then feed the other half back to them, because I know that chickens in themselves, you know, have a lot of negative effects of having to lay so many eggs. So I believe if the chicken is well cared for, I don't see an issue. I don't see a big issue with that if they want to eat them, the eggs. I don't, but I wouldn't want to myself, but I don't have a moral issue with it in those circumstances.
So it wouldn't be immoral to captive a chicken and steal its eggs to eat for a vegan.
It wouldn't. No, I didn't say You said capture a chicken, correct?
Well, you said own. Sorry.
Sorry if I can't hear you. I just got the mic right there. I got it right down because of somebody.
So guys,
The other
guys,
end.
can I
Yeah.
just interject real quick? Like, not to interrupt the debate. This is going well. But let's make sure to keep the topic on abortion and not get too deep into veganism.
I am not going into veganism. Don't worry about it. I'm just trying to draw a parallel that he would understand from my point of view.
Okay, I get
Put
that.
it this way. Put it this way.
It's totally fine.
I know that a lot of people, I don't really want to be talking about veganism too much, because that's why we're having a debate about something different. I mean, I don't even know that. I haven't put a lot of thought into this topic. Well, I have. I've been learning more and more recently, but this isn't something I'm super knowledgeable about. I probably would be more knowledgeable about veganism, but I don't really want to talk about it that much. So yeah, of course we can talk about it for 5 minutes if you need to help establish something you're saying or explain something to me that you were saying regarding abortion. That's fine.
Yeah, we can go back to the brain dead analogy, and I'd like you to elaborate on why you think that brain dead adults are different from brain dead unborns.
Talk brain dead adult human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. completely completely, so no other outside influences or nothing. It's just a brain dead human and a brain dead child, or a child with no brain.
Well, what I'll do is I'll make an appeal to emotion a little bit and say that the brain dead person is your mother.
Brain dead person is your mother. Well, the first thing that springs to mind is I don't want to die. I mean, so I know that at that stage I wouldn't be alive, but I don't want to not live my life. So of course it's sort of, you say you're not appealing on emotion, but it kind of does trigger an emotional response within me. I was just wanting to clarify if you meant two separate entities and that have nothing to do with each other, or myself as well, for that matter, like your example. I mean, are you just talking about a brain dead human and a fetus that has yet to develop their brain activity?
Yeah, sure. So you said that brain dead is your goalpost and brain activity
for a
and
person,
consciousness. Yeah,
I'd
so
still
that's
believe. I'd still believe that fetus is human in the sense that it's got human DNA. I just wouldn't grant it personhood. I just don't. Just like with the comatose person or brain dead, actually, that's kind of more clear. I don't believe they have personhood either. They're a human, though.
okay. So how do we define personhood? Because initially it was protected by the law, and I think we've gone from
yeah,
that.
I understand. I get what you're saying. I do believe that's fundamental to what being a person is, to having personhood. That is fundamental. They go hand in hand. But if you're going to ask me, what is my definition of personhood? What I can put forth is that they've got to meet 4 criteria, and that's consciousness, some ability to reason, even if it's the most basic reasoning, self-motivated activity by any means, and capacity to communicate by any means. I do know that similar criteria have been put forth in the past, but they actually include self-awareness. And I know as soon as I said self-aware, you'd say, well, babies up until the age of 18 months are not self-aware. So that's why I don't use that as a goalpost for what I believe of somebody who has personhood needs to meet to get that.
Sure. So, do you know much about newborn babies? Like fresh out the vagina, 1 day old baby.
Am I knowledgeable on that? Well, I suppose it depends upon what you say, but I mean, I know that children, babies, are not self-aware until 18 months. So I know the basics. I don't know the details.
Sure. So with the vague details, would it be morally permissible to kill a newborn baby 1 day out of the womb, stamp on it, dead?
No.
Why not? If it's
'Cause
moral to kill the fetus, then it must be moral to kill them, unless you're just pro-birth.
at certain stages.
Okay, any stages arbitrary? You just like I said,
Well,
you've
I
got to give
believe,
some kind of goalpost.
for example, I mean, look, personhood requires consciousness. So, I mean, like I said, I mean, I would still see a 9-month, say an 8-month fetus turned into a baby. I believe that fetus still have some consciousness. It's not awaken out of the womb. I get that. It's not the consciousness that I have, that you have. I understand that, but I still would believe they would have some sort of consciousness, and they would have a lot of I mean, they would even have some reasoning. I do believe that they would meet my criteria, but they would not have the capacity to communicate until after they're born.
Okay, so
But I mean, maybe they would. I mean, maybe they would be able to. There would be some capacity there to communicate in late-term pregnancies. Maybe there might be. I don't know. Well, when I say I
my
don't know,
child
I
is
don't know
late
the
term
specific,
so
but I
far.
know like an embryo, for example, does not have the capacity to communicate. I know that 100%. I know that it has no consciousness
Yeah.
or no reasoning.
So, unfortunately, you are quite stuck until you can give me a definitive answer of the difference between a personhood that you give to a brain dead adult human and personhood that you won't give to an unborn human. Because without
Well,
a difference, then they're parallel. Because the list of threshold that you gave for
yeah.
personhood can easily be attributed to brain dead adults as well.
Well, I clearly said when it comes to brain dead adults that they no longer have personhood.
Okay,
Brain
so
dead.
so under your framework, it would be morally permissible for me to kill your brain dead mother.
Well, she's brain dead, yes.
Okay, so the only difference between able to kill and not kill is what? Say you're the president of the world and you make the laws. How would it be permissible to kill brain dead people, but not permissible to kill not brain dead people? What's the difference?
What would be the difference? Just give me a sec. Hold on. Well, at first, nothing comes to mind. There is
Okay.
no difference.
So
Yeah.
I'll move on a little bit. We're just going to go round and round in circles. But
No. Yeah, I get. No, yeah, that's fine. Go. Well, that's side. Well, you know how that's kind of how I felt when it came to the IVF example.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of would go around and around in circles because I mean, you would get to the point of yes, it's murder. Well, actually, you didn't say that, but I mean, I take away from that that's what you meant, and then you would go to it's wrong for well, actually no, it's that an embryo has personhood. And then I would bring up the example of the IVF clinic and that you said that would be different.
Okay. So I want to move on a little bit, move this on because we've been going quite a while. Move on to eventualities. So with the example of your mother being brain dead, she could be brain dead forever, right? But she could also come out of a coma and her brain could be fine next week. Now, you're morally permissible at that stage to kill her in your framework, to kill her because she's just a brain dead adult and you agree that it's fine to kill her. However, if you know that within a week she'll be fine, are you still morally permissible to kill her? The same is analogous to unborn children that are going to have that consciousness, are going to have that will to live, are going to have all of these things, but you're denying them the right to have those things. So they're not just in a perpetual state of unconsciousness. They're not just forever going to be this formation of cells that has no brain or anything. They're going to grow. They're going to be a human being. You're denying them the right to become that human being.
Yeah. See, I'd say, I don't think you're denying them of something that has not happened.
Okay, but it's going to happen. It's
Well-
almost a surety that it's gonna happen.
Well, don't get me wrong. I know that in a large majority of cases it does happen, but not all the time. That's
Okay, well,
so.
do you want to talk about the vast majority, or do you want to talk about the vast minority? I think it's much more pragmatic. I think it's much more practical to talk about the majority.
Well, I would say
You can just keep
Yeah.
backing off and say, "Oh, well, it's just the minority." That but it doesn't really matter when it is actually the majority of babies will go to full term, will become fully fledged humans, and go on to live their lives. I'm not against abortion in severe medical cases, or even sometimes rape or severe disability. Anything. I'm not
Well, I
against
should have
that.
brought that up. I should have actually asked you that, to be honest, to begin with. That makes sense. So you don't have a problem with abortion in case of rape?
No, some cases of rape. So I believe that in a case of rape where it's I'm trying to think of the words. So if it's just a simple rape case, like a woman is raped by someone in the street, she's impregnated, I believe that she is still immoral for aborting that baby. I think that baby is an innocent party, and it is still an innocent party until
Well, that
it's
fetus is not a
forever.
baby yet.
Yeah, forever
yeah.
and innocent.
Yeah.
So I think it's still immoral to be killing the baby. I think that in some cases it's permissible. I can't think of exactly different scenarios at the top of my head. If you have any, I'm quite happy to go through thought experiments.
When you use words like innocent, it kind of I'd say it's the incorrect word. I personally think
Well, it's dealing with a crime, so it has to be innocent. So the only reason we punish the rapist is because it's a crime and it's wrong and it's immoral to do, but we don't punish the child. We don't take away the child's right for life because he was a party to that crime. So he's innocent. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so he's innocent. Would he always be innocent in your book? I mean,
yeah. So it's like if someone, same scenario, man rapes woman in the street, and then baby is born 9 months later, and then woman decides that she wants to kill the baby.
Well, obviously that is the case. Yes, I mean, well, I mean, you're consistent in your views if you hold that an IVF clinic does commit murder.
Yeah, but what about the rape though? Well, why'd you bring that up? What was different between a rape baby and a normal baby? What's the difference?
I'd say it's nothing. It's not to do. It's to do more with the woman and the how the fetus came about, or how the embryo. It's not even a fetus, really. It's how the embryo came about. I don't believe it's a complete separate. You seem to be drawing a bit of a line, kind of between them. You kind of not. You are talking mostly about the fetus and not the woman. My thought process goes straight to what the woman rather than the fetus.
Why? Why does it go to the woman?
Because as I explained it, I believe it's okay to have an abortion before brain activity, before that's where I kind of draw the line in the sand, because it comes back down to pain. And this has got, and I was actually going to say something. It's got nothing to do with all my other beliefs or anything like that. I've actually always felt this way. Not that it really matters, but that was just first thing that came to mind, actually. But I'm sure you weren't going to mention anything about that. I mean, but yeah, it really just falls straight to the woman, because she's kind of she's the one who sort of had to suffer, and not the baby, because it's not a baby yet. It's just an embryo.
Okay, but I have to suffer too. It's say I'm a rapist and I have to suffer.
Yep.
Where's the arbitrary line of suffering?
Where's that? Well, I'd say where I would draw the line is the ability to actually feel it, to know that it exists.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. I've got kids myself, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, I tremendous respect to my partner for having children. It's fucking hard. It's a tremendous thing. It's a miracle. Right? However, I have also suffered. Right, so I haven't suffered anywhere near as much, and we can quantify it simply by saying that she's had the baby and I haven't. She's gone through the pain of childbirth and I haven't.
Would you? I mean, that's actually kind of good you brought that up. Now, say you didn't have any children, and not too sure whether she's your wife or not. Did you just mention she's your wife? If you don't mind me asking, or
She's not. I just say partner.
oh yeah, okay. Well, it really doesn't matter, to be honest. Let's just say you guys couldn't have a baby, and you really, really, really wanted one. Would you go to an IVF clinic?
No,
No, you would not.
no, we'd
Even if-
adopt.
What's that? Where
We
would
would adopt.
where would you have an arbitrary line? Like, let's say they could say they'd do it. They could, okay, I could do it in 2 fetuses. We would only have to take 2 embryos to create 1 fetus.
No, if
You
she
still wouldn't.
couldn't get if she couldn't get pregnant, then we just adopt. I think artificial insemination is.
Now, what happens if you couldn't? Yeah, I know. What happens if you couldn't adopt either? That wasn't.
We just wouldn't have children.
You just wouldn't have children.
Yeah, I strongly
Well,
now. I never really thought about the IVF situation before, but now that you bring it up like this, I if it is true, I don't even know that it's true that they kill 19 out of 20 embryos that they try and inseminate. But if that is true, then I'm completely against them.
Well, from the statistics that I read, yes, that's what I read.
Yeah, I can grant you.
It could be. I think if memory serves me correct, it was up to 19 to 1. So that's why when I was looking at it, I kind of came away with that thinking it's probably around 15, 16 on average, something like that. But yeah, I do know that, and I do know that not only for something I've read, but from what I've actually was told by somebody. Regarding this whole procedure. So yeah, it is something around that, and there's a reason why. And I know you said you're not religious, but there is a reason why Catholic Church does denounce. Well, I'm not too sure whether they do or not, whether they've accepted it. I don't know, or maybe not completely accepted it, but accepted it in some regard. But
nobody cares about those religious nuns. Nobody gives a shit about what they fucking believe or accept. They're clearly paedophilic morons. They believe in big bearded men in the sky. Concentrate on what actually affects us now, not at the end of our lives.
Okay.
Yeah, so your argumentation is caught me off guard a little bit because you haven't at all touched on bodily autonomy for the woman. You haven't made the common arguments. You've gone straight for it's not a human. It doesn't deserve any human.
No, I didn't say it. No. I didn't say it's not human.
Sorry,
I said
personhood.
Personhood. I know. I'm just making that clear. It's
Yeah.
nothing to do with not being human, or whatever. But no. I just want you to kind of know that, because yes, that is where I come from. I don't want to deliberately, maybe, because I just don't really. The bodily autonomy thing. I do not buy it. That's why even the thought experiment, the violin. I'm sure you're aware of the violinist.
Yeah.
Thought experiment. Yeah, I kind of don't exactly agree with that. To be honest, I can see how that plays a factor in women's thinking when it comes to abortion, but it's not how I've really looked at the issue. I've looked at it, well, before it was a potential human in human, but that just is absolutely stupid to be quite frank. It really is. It's got nothing to do with that. I mean, it's human is a scientific, more scientific type term, or a term that's used in a scientific type context. But personhood is kind of where it is at the big disagreement. It's got, and I don't know. I just don't really. I think that's where it comes down. It's got nothing to do with bodily autonomy. There is that element there, but that's not where I really kind of thought that it would even be wise coming at this issue from.
Okay, so one big final question I've just thought about, a cool thought experiment for everyone to participate in. Everyone, with your moral framework and how you say that, or how you define personhood so far, would I be morally permissible to poison every pregnant female, and kill their children? It does no harm whatsoever to the female. No harm is done to the adult, but it silently and gently kills the babies all over the world. Am I morally permitted to do so?
No, you're not.
Why not? You haven't attributed personhood to those people. They don't deserve moralistic traits. You don't award them. You don't award them moralistic traits.
I'm just you're denying the woman. Well, if they all don't want to have their child, I mean, that's different. And also, the other thing that would be good to know before I kind of answer your question fully is how. So that was, I'm guessing you're coming from pre-brain development stage.
Any stage you want, yeah.
Okay, so that's
zygote, embryo.
Well, if they were all, if they weren't voluntarily allowing you to do it, I would think it's wrong.
Why?
Why would I think it's wrong? Yeah.
Well, better yet, we'll rephrase it a little bit if you like. If it makes it a bit easier, say that me and my partner are having a baby, and I decide that I want an abortion. Should I be allowed to impose an abortion on her?
Being a male, should you be able to impose an abortion upon a female?
It's my child too.
No, I don't believe you. It's morally. Did you say it's morally acceptable?
Would say okay. So I'll take the poison scenario again and say that me and my partner, and she says that she wants to have the baby, and I go behind her back and I kill the baby without her knowing. Am I morally permissible to do that?
No, I believe that you're denying her the choice by going behind her back.
What happens if she does it to me?
So she feeds you the poison whilst you're alive?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
if she has an abortion against my will.
Okay, if she has an abortion. Sorry. Yeah. If she has an abortion against my will. Okay. I believe that's wrong. It's hard to put
why
both
am
in
I a moral factor
context.
in that scenario? Why am I a moral consideration?
Hey guys, so I'm not sure if you saw SD's comment, but this debate has been going on for about an hour, which I believe is as long as you wanted to talk for. So maybe you should start preparing, both of you, some closing statements, and we can move on to the Q&A soon. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Do you want to go first, Eden?
You want to do closing statements now?
Yeah, if you could. I guess if you want to talk, if you want to just finish up this topic and then move on to closing statements, that's fine too.
Sure. Yeah, I can go first. I'm still of the opinion that there is no difference between.
Sorry, Eden. Is there one thing I can? I know Zoom. Do you mind if I ask Eden one last question?
Yeah, one more is fine.
Yeah, okay. I know you mentioned that you still believe cultural relativism is true.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that with the fact that 9 out of 10 adults in the UK believe or hold the pro-choice position? Because that I'm kind of really curious about knowing. Like, I just don't. It doesn't.
Well, just because 9 out of 10, I mean,
Right.
you kind of self-answered yourself, because if we're talking about cultural relativism and 9 out of 10, then that means that it's still relative. Still, the 1 out of 10 is still relative to that stat.
Well, I'd say the large 90% of the public say it is permissible. So
Sure, but
that's
that
well, I mean,
coincides with relativism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bring it up, but yeah, you used the same sort of thing in the last time when we spoke. So I suppose it kind of just works for you then, and it seems from my position it works against you now. But yeah, I mean, I still don't understand how you can reconcile the two together.
So yeah, moral relativism,
Well, it doesn't make sense.
taketh away.
Something's accepted by the large majority if you kind of say that everything's relative to society, but yet you disagree with the large majority of society, and 90% is the large majority.
Sure, and I think you'd have to agree that in a society that you live in, the legality of things and the common consensus of things doesn't attribute to moral relativism completely. So, say children in Africa that are accused of being witches, discarded and left to starve to death on the streets. It's not moral to do that. It's clearly not moral to do that, and you can explain to them why it's not moral to do that, but they still do it, and the vast majority of them still agree it's okay to do so.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I can't hear this noise in the background.
So the same thing with the vegan argument that you're talking about, where I used it, the vegan argument, that's a fair thing. And you,
yeah, I mean that's just that's it just came to. I mean that's kind of just sprung. It's pretty much the same argument. I mean I was even looking at the proposition because I mean at the same time I actually took a screenshot of our last debate proposition. It was almost identical, ironically, to this one. I mean just sub out veganism for abortion, so it's kind of no different really. I mean, it was very similar, except we were holding different positions, really. So I don't know, but I disagree. I just don't see how cultural relativism can be reconciled with abortion, unless you were living in, say, a country like, any country where abortion is legal.
Well, cultural relativism doesn't force me to agree with it, you know. So I don't have to agree with the consensus of the land. It doesn't, or my culture at all. I don't have to agree with it. That it doesn't force me to say
Well, I
that
mean, I
this is
suppose
correct.
you wouldn't have to agree with it. I mean, I suppose that the large majority of society in the UK would believe murder is bad. You don't really need to believe that murder is bad. That just doesn't make any sense.
Sure, and given a public platform, I think I could probably convince the vast majority that abortion is murder.
That position does not make sense why it would be relative to society.
All right. So with that all said, would you guys like to move on to your closing statements now?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
All right, cool. Any preference for who goes first?
Eden's fine. He's all right.
Okay. Floor is yours, Eden.
I still hold the position that it's that an unborn has the moral equivalent of a adult human. I don't think the goalposts set by Kaz have convinced me at all that there is any correlation between that there is no correlation. I think that until someone can convince me otherwise, then I'm just going to be of the same opinion. Quite willing to have everyone else chime in at the end. I think that abortion itself has its place in certain aspects of life, but the overwhelming majority of abortions that are done under my moral framework are inexcusable and constitute at least manslaughter. That about do for my closing statement.
Okay. I suppose in an ideal society, abortion would not be necessary, but unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal society. We have no choice but to have abortion clinics. I don't believe fetuses have a right to life. It needs to be accessible for young women to get an abortion if they want one. I don't see how it would make sense for it to be illegal. And that's if somebody wants an abortion, if it's early on in the pregnancy, I have no problem with it. If somebody has a good reason to have an abortion after 16 weeks, I have no problem with it. Like I said earlier, it needs to be done. But anyways, when it comes to personhood, consciousness needs to be present, some form of reasoning, however little, self-motivated activity, it can be however little again, and some capacity to communicate by whatever means you can. Apart from that, I just don't agree with your position, Eden, but I'd be more than interested in learning more about this in my own time.
All right. Is that the end, Cass?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, yeah.
All right, nice. So with all that said, I believe it's time to move on to the Q&A. So Conan had the first question and he wanted to be unmuted to ask it. So I'm gonna unmute him now. And you guys or one of you can chat with him for a little. Okay.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Okay. So I have a question. Do you believe that you have a moral obligation to save a container with 5,000 frozen zygotes over a 3-year-old child? And would you save the container with 500 zygotes over a 3-year-old child?
Is that to me or Kaz?
Whoever wants to answer. Yeah, even you, because you are anti-abortion.
I've never heard quite an emotional trolley problem before. Would I save thousands of zygotes over a human child?
If you say that the zygote has the same moral value as a human, you need to obviously save 5,000 zygotes.
Yeah, I think technically, if we're just going to go straight down to, moral threshold being the only value to human life, then yes, of course, I would have to save the zygotes. However, that isn't the only dynamic at play. That's not the only goalpost that we have in that question, in that particular trolley problem. What we have is a fully grown child, an infant with emotions and feelings and already experiences versus zygotes. Zygotes are the first stage of real growth in an unborn. So in that stage, they are technically just an amalgamation of cells. So as an appeal to emotion, if I was faced with that question in a practical scenario in real life, I would save the infant over the zygotes.
So you would save the infant, even though you said that the zygote has the same moral value as as a child. So you would do an immoral act.
Yes. Like I said, the moralistic outcome of it, the ethical stances of it, aren't the only factors at play. So no one runs around, unless you're hyper utilitarian or hyper consequentialist. No one runs around just thinking about the outcomes of their acts, be it moral or ethical or anything like that. When faced with a question like that, the appeal to emotion is great, because you've got an amalgamation of cells on a table that has nothing about it, that is at the earliest stages of life, compared to something that's already grown, already has feelings, already been through emotions, already has hopes and aspirations. And the appeal to emotion would greatly impact any ethical decision made by any participant, unless they were, like I said, highly autistic consequentialists.
But didn't you say that abortion is immoral, regardless of the feelings?
I don't think I said that specifically, but it is immoral.
Yeah, it is immoral, and you said it is immoral, and you would do the immoral thing. So why can you do immoral things and other people cannot? I have a right?
You faced me with a trolley problem where there is no outcome, there is no outward way. So you're giving me an option whether to be the bad guy or be the bad guy. So there is no outcome. If it was up to me, I'd just save them both. But you've given me an option to one of them is an immoral act. You agree that, right? So they're both immoral acts. So you've given me two immoral acts to pick from, and then called me immoral for picking one of them.
Well, you said that
I'm not well versed on trolley problems, but this is weak.
Guys, Conan, or Eden, Conan, Eden has answered your question. I know you want to get into it with him, and that's fine, but we have some other questions that need to be answered. So maybe if you guys could just put this conversation on pause for now, we can go through the other questions first. That would be preferable. You okay with that?
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna temporarily mute you again, Conan, just for consistency. And does anyone else have any other questions? They want to be unmuted. Anyone? If there's no other questions, I can unmute Conan and we can continue, and you guys can continue your debate. I just don't want the whole thing to be just one debate, to just be one discussion. If no one wants to ask anything, I'll just let him keep speaking.
Yeah, I mean, just to chip in, I don't think there's any other written questions. Like anybody listening, like Zoom said, you can write your question in VC text if you just want it read out, or you can be unmuted. We'll hang around a little bit longer and see if anybody comes up with anything, but if not, I think we can wrap it up after that.
I think I'm gonna probably unmute Conan, since no one seems to be coming up, and he was getting into it with Eden. If Eden's okay with it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Conan, you're unmuted. You can continue your discussion.
Okay, where were we? I forgot. Okay, so basically, if you say that the unborn has the same right, moral value as a living person, then you cannot wiggle out of that problem. You cannot say that you would save a child and not be immoral. You would be immoral.
I didn't say that. I said I would be immoral.
Yeah. And so you say, but you will still do it. Do I have a right to chastise you and punish you for your decision?
Yes.
Good. That's consistent.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, it was an interesting question. Thank you for it. I hadn't thought of a trolley problem being actually useful in this debate. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't like that you've given me zygote and child. I'd much prefer a later. I think it'd be much more of a useful thought experiment if we went later into term pregnancy.
You are free to adapt it whatever you like. The point is the same.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an appeal to emotion for other people, not for me, because I'm consistent throughout it all. I would obviously murder the zygotes, and I would expect to be, well, I wouldn't be surprised to be punished in accordance the same. But like I said, the trolley problem that you presented was convoluted. So you've given the two options, but you've missed out the thousands of variables that come with it. Majoritively, like I said, the appeal to emotion and the appeal to like normality. So we see a child as something that is more us, more human than us. So we like Kaz would say, like a zygote isn't yet valued with personhood, but a child that is already born is, and I grant the same morals to a zygote as I would a child, an infant, but the infant would have precedent over the zygote because of appeals to emotions, societal standards, a whole host of different things. I hope my answers satisfied your question.
Okay, so with that seemingly over, we'll just ask again if there are any other questions or anyone else wants to be unmuted. You just ping me in VC text and I'll unmute you right away.
Yeah, I think we could call it there and just go and have a lovely chat.
All right, yeah. It doesn't seem like there are many takers. All right, so yeah, this was a good debate. Good job, Eden, Kaz. Yeah, you guys should be proud of yourselves.
Next time.
It's a good discussion. All right, so